Remember when visiting your nan's house felt like entering a completely different world? The moment you stepped through the front door, the smell hit you first. A mixture of furniture polish, tea, biscuits, and something cooking that had probably been simmering since breakfast. The television was usually on, but never too loud. The curtains were open just enough to let the light in, and everywhere you looked, there were things that seemed to exist in every British nan's house. It didn't matter whether she lived in a terraced house in Liverpool, a bungalow in Kent, or a council house in Birmingham. Somehow they all had the same objects, the same decorations, the same furniture, the same mysterious items that nobody else seemed to own. Looking back now, many of them have almost disappeared completely. But if you grew up visiting your nan in Britain during the 1960s, 70s, 80s, or even the 90s, you'll remember them instantly. These weren't just household items, they were part of British childhood itself. The first thing almost every nan seemed to own was the famous biscuit tin that never actually contained biscuits. Every child made the same mistake. You'd spot a beautiful tin sitting on a shelf, usually decorated with pictures of shortbread or biscuits, and excitement would immediately take over. Finally, a treat. You'd lift the lid expecting custard creams or digestives, and instead discover sewing supplies. Buttons, needles, safety pins, threads in colours nobody had used since 1972. Somehow, every nan in Britain had agreed to run the same prank without telling anyone else. And somehow every generation of children fell for it. Even when you knew the tin probably contained sewing supplies, part of you still hoped today might be different. It never was. Then there was the display cabinet. The cabinet nobody was allowed to touch. Inside sat the finest china, crystal glasses, decorative plates and ornaments that only seemed to come out during visits from royalty, or perhaps the Pope himself. Most children spent years staring at these treasures through glass without ever being permitted near them. The cabinet stood like a museum exhibit in the corner of the room. Every item inside looked incredibly valuable, even if it probably wasn't. Nan would dust every shelf carefully, yet nobody ever seemed to use any of it. The good china remained permanently on standby for a special occasion that never quite arrived. Every British nan also possessed at least one mysterious bowl filled entirely with wrapped sweets, usually Werther's Originals, sometimes fruit drops, occasionally mint humbugs. The bowl seemed magical because it never emptied. No matter how many sweets disappeared during visits, somehow it was always full again the following week. Grandchildren learned quickly that asking politely often resulted in being allowed 2 sweets. Taking 3 without permission, however, felt like committing a serious crime. Even today, one Werther's Original is enough to transport many people straight back to their nan's living room. And then there was the furniture. Not just furniture. Furniture protected from life itself. Many British nans covered sofas and armchairs with plastic covers designed to preserve them forever. Sitting down in summer felt like climbing onto a giant warm carrier bag. You'd stick to it instantly. Every movement created squeaking sounds that echoed around the room. Yet the furniture underneath remained immaculate for decades. Some sofas survived longer than entire governments. Nobody quite understood why the furniture needed such protection when nobody was ever allowed to enjoy it properly anyway. But questioning Nan's logic was never a good idea. The television area had its own special rules too. The remote control wasn't really a remote control. It was Nan's remote control, usually wrapped in a plastic cover despite never leaving the house. Programs weren't selected casually, they were chosen with care. Game shows, Coronation Street, the news, maybe a nature documentary. Children quickly learned not to interfere. And somewhere nearby there was almost certainly a collection of TV guides stacked neatly together, even though most were months out of date. Nan liked keeping things. Throwing useful items away felt wrong. Speaking of keeping things, every British nan seemed convinced that one day she might need a plastic carrier bag from 1987. Inside a cupboard under the sink or hanging behind a door was another bag filled entirely with other bags, hundreds of them. Every shopping trip added another layer to the collection. Nobody knew exactly how many bags were in there because nobody had ever reached the bottom. It was Britain's original recycling system. Long before environmental campaigns encouraged reusing bags, Nan was already doing it because wasting perfectly good carrier bags would have been unthinkable. The kitchen itself was a treasure trove of familiar objects. Decorative tea towels that nobody was allowed to use, biscuit barrels, sugar bowls, a kettle that seemed permanently switched on, and somewhere on the sideboard sat a fruit bowl containing bananas that were somehow either completely green or completely brown, with no stage in between. Tea was at the centre of everything. You couldn't visit without being offered a cup. In fact, refusing tea often seemed to confuse British nans. Someone had arrived, therefore tea must be made. It was practically the law. One object that appeared in astonishing numbers was the decorative ornament. Every shelf held tiny ceramic animals, porcelain figures, miniature cottages, or strange souvenirs collected over decades. Some had arrived from seaside holidays, others were gifts from relatives. A few had origins nobody could remember. Dusting them must have taken hours. Yet every ornament remained proudly on display. Children were warned repeatedly not to touch anything. This warning naturally made touching things incredibly tempting. Most British children spent years navigating Nan's house as though crossing a museum full of priceless artifacts. And then there were the clocks. Every Nan seemed to own far more clocks than necessary. One on the mantelpiece, another in the kitchen, one in the hallway. Perhaps even a grandfather clock if she was particularly lucky. None of them displayed exactly the same time. One might be 3 minutes fast, another 5 minutes slow. Yet Nan somehow knew the correct time anyway. The ticking became part of the atmosphere. Sit quietly in your Nan's living room and you'd hear clocks ticking from every direction like a tiny orchestra keeping time. The spare room was another mystery entirely. Every Nan had one room that looked untouched by human life. The bed perfectly made, the curtains perfectly arranged, the carpet suspiciously clean. You weren't entirely sure whether anyone had ever slept there. Yet the room remained ready at all times. Sometimes it doubled as storage for old suitcases, spare blankets, and Christmas decorations dating back to the reign of Queen Victoria. It felt less like a bedroom and more like a preserved historical exhibit. Of course, no British Nan's house would have been complete without knitting supplies. Wool appeared everywhere. Baskets filled with knitting needles sat beside armchairs. Half-finished projects rested on tables. Blankets emerged seemingly from nowhere whenever temperatures dropped by a single degree. If you complained about being cold, a knitted cardigan would often appear before you finished the sentence. Nans possessed a remarkable ability to produce warmth from thin air. Scarves, blankets, jumpers, tea cozies. If it could be knitted, Nan had probably made one. The shopping trolley was another classic feature. Not the modern metal supermarket trolley, the fabric one on wheels. Every Nan seemed to own one. Watching her pull it down the high street felt completely normal at the time. Today they're becoming rare, but for decades they were a symbol of practical British shopping. It carried groceries, bargains, and occasionally enough supplies to survive a small apocalypse. Nans trusted those trolleys more than most people trust modern technology. Then there were the photographs. Family photos covered almost every available surface. Weddings, birthdays, school pictures, holidays at Blackpool, grainy snapshots from the 1960s. Nan's house often contained a visual history of the entire family. You could trace decades of hairstyles, fashion mistakes, and family milestones simply by looking around the room. Every photograph came with a story. Every story came with 3 more stories. And before long, an afternoon visit had somehow turned into a journey through 40 years of family history. What made these objects special wasn't their value. Most were ordinary, some were cheap. A few looked positively outdated even back then, but together they created something that felt uniquely comforting. A British Nan's house wasn't designed by interior designers. It wasn't following trends. It wasn't trying to impress anyone. It simply reflected a lifetime of memories, habits, routines, and practical common sense. Everything had a purpose, even if nobody else understood what that purpose was. Today, many of those things are disappearing. Plastic-covered sofas are rare. Display cabinets are less common. Sewing tins are becoming harder to find. Younger generations often prefer minimalist homes without dozens of ornaments covering every shelf. Times change, houses change, lifestyles change. But mention the biscuit tin full of buttons or the bowl of Werther's Originals to almost any Briton of a certain age, and the memories come flooding back instantly. Because the truth is, those objects were never really the important part. What people actually miss is what came with them. The cups of tea, the stories, the visits, the feeling of being welcomed the moment you stepped through the door. A British nan's house wasn't special because of what was inside it. It was special because of who was inside it. The ornaments, the clocks, the sweets, and the knitting needles simply became part of the memory. And perhaps that's why so many people still remember them so fondly. They remind us of a time when life felt a little slower, visits lasted a little longer, and every nan's house somehow felt like the safest place in Britain. If this brought back memories of your own nan, tell us what item you remember most in the comments below. And if there was something every British nan seemed to own that we've forgotten, let us know. We'd love to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the Britain we remember.